Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his forehead as he crawled through another narrow maintenance tunnel. The metal was hot and sharp edges caught his work uniform. 3 years ago, he had been designing shield generators for Earth's defense fleet. Now he fixed broken pipes and cleaned air filters on an alien warship. The Kethar had won the war quickly. Earth's weapons barely scratched their ships. Human technology was like throwing rocks at a mountain. When the surrender came, millions of humans were taken as workers. They said it was better than death. Marcus was not so sure. He finished replacing a damaged power coupling and started moving toward the next repair. The tunnel shook as the massive ship changed direction. Marcus had learned to read these movements. They were heading somewhere important. The vibrations felt urgent. "Chen, get to Maintenance Base 7, now!" The voice came through his comm device. It was rough and commanding. Marcus recognized it as Supervisor Graltok, a mid-level Kethar officer who enjoyed making humans work extra hours. Marcus crawled faster through the tunnel. When he reached the bay, 12 other humans were already there. They all looked worried. Supervisor Graltok stood in front of them, his scales dark green with irritation. Behind him was a much larger figure that made Marcus's blood freeze. Commander Vexthul was nearly 8 feet tall. His scales were deep black with silver markings that showed his high rank. His yellow eyes could see in the dark, and his claws could cut through steel. Marcus had seen him only twice before, and both times someone had died soon after. "Humans," Commander Vexthul's voice was like grinding stone. "Your ship has a problem. The quantum fold drive has 3 critical failures. My engineers say it cannot be fixed in time." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The quantum fold drive let the ship jump across space instantly. Without it, they were trapped wherever they were. If enemies found them, everyone would die. "Commander," Supervisor Graltok said carefully, "perhaps we should contact the engineering fleet for proper technicians." Commander Vexthul turned his massive head toward the supervisor. "The nearest engineering fleet is 6 days away. We have perhaps 6 hours before enemy scouts find us. Your proper technicians will arrive to find debris." The commander's eyes swept over the humans. Marcus tried to make himself smaller. Being noticed by a Kethar commander was never good. "I have observed your species for 3 years," Vexthul continued. "You approach problems differently than we do. You ignore proper procedures. You combine systems in ways that should not work. Today, this may be useful." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. A Kethar commander was asking humans to fix their most important system? It had to be a trap. "Chen," the commander said suddenly. Marcus jumped. "You designed military systems for your planet. You will lead this repair team." "Sir, Marcus started, but the commander raised a clawed hand. "You have 4 hours. If you succeed, your work detail will receive better food rations for 1 month. If you fail, we all die anyway, so punishment becomes irrelevant." Supervisor Graltok looked shocked. "Commander, surely you cannot mean to put a human in charge of such critical repairs." "The procedures alone." "The procedures have failed," Vexthul said coldly. "Perhaps it is time to ignore them." Marcus found his voice. "Sir, what exactly is wrong with the drive?" Commander Vexthul activated a holographic display. The quantum fold drive appeared in blue light, spinning slowly. Red sections showed the damaged areas. 3 quantum coil assemblies have suffered harmonic cascade failures. The safety systems have locked down the entire array. Standard repair protocol requires complete coil replacement, but we do not have replacement parts. Marcus studied the display. He had never worked with quantum fold technology, but he understood the basic principles. Energy flowed through crystalline coils in specific patterns. When the patterns broke down, the whole system stopped working. "Could we bypass the damaged sections?" Marcus asked. Several Kethar officers made sounds of disbelief. "Impossible," one said. "The harmonic frequencies would destabilize. What if we changed the frequencies?" Marcus continued. "Humans have been modifying equipment since we invented tools. Could we tune the remaining coils to compensate for the missing ones?" Commander Vexthul stared at Marcus for a long moment. "Your species constantly surprises me. Yes, theoretically it might work. But the calculations would be enormous, and one mistake would destroy the ship." "We don't have to be perfect," Marcus said, warming to the idea. "We just have to be good enough to make one jump to safety." The commander nodded slowly. "You have your orders. Supervisor Graltok will provide you with any tools or materials you request." As the Kethar officers left, Marcus turned to his team. They were all looking at him like he had lost his mind. "Marcus," said Sarah Kim, an electronics specialist, "what are we doing?" We don't know anything about their technology. We know about energy flow, Marcus replied. We know about frequency harmonics. We know about making broken things work. That's what humans do. He activated the work terminal and began pulling up technical specifications. The Kethar had detailed manuals for everything, but they were written like religious texts. Every procedure had to be followed exactly in order with no variations. Look at this, Marcus said, pointing to the screen. They have 17 different safety checks just to open an access panel. What if we just opened it? Tom Rodriguez, a former mechanic, grinned. You mean like we're fixing a truck instead of a spaceship? Exactly like that. For the next hour, they studied the drive systems. Marcus began to see the problem. The Kethar built everything with perfect precision, but that precision made their systems fragile. When something broke, the whole thing stopped working. Human engineering was different. Humans built things to be repaired. They made backup systems and workarounds. When something broke, they fixed it with whatever they had available. I think I see a solution, Marcus said finally. We can't replace the broken coils, but we can rewire the healthy ones to share the load. It won't be pretty and it definitely won't be proper, but it might work. The team spent the next 2 hours in the quantum drive chamber. It was a massive room filled with humming crystals and energy conduits. Marcus felt like he was working inside a living creature. They cut wires that the manual said never to cut. They connected systems that were meant to be separate. They used spare parts from completely different machines. With 30 minutes left, they had created something that no Kethar engineer would recognize. Will it work? Sarah asked. Marcus looked at their improvised solution. Exposed wires were held together with emergency clamps. Frequency modulators were connected through jury-rigged adapters. Warning lights flashed red all over the control panels. There's only one way to find out, he said. Commander Vex Thule returned with several officers. He looked at their work and his expression was unreadable. This violates approximately 47 safety protocols, one officer said. 48, another corrected. Commander Vex Thule studied the modifications. Will it function? We think so, Marcus said. For one jump, maybe two. After that, you'll need real repairs. The commander nodded. One jump will be sufficient. He turned to the bridge crew. Prepare for quantum fold. As alarms sounded throughout the ship, Marcus held his breath. Either they were about to escape to safety, or they were about to become the first humans to accidentally destroy a Kethar battlecruiser. The drive began to charge. Energy flowed through their improvised connections. The ship's hull started to vibrate in a way that felt both wrong and strangely familiar. Then, with a sound like tearing reality, they jumped. The ship emerged from quantum fold space with a violent shudder that threw everyone to the deck. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the drive chamber. Marcus pulled himself upright and checked the improvised connections. Half of them were sparking, but they were still holding together. Jump successful, came the announcement from the bridge. All sections report status. Marcus looked at his jury-rigged repair work. Smoke was rising from several junction points, and the crystal arrays were glowing much brighter than they should. But they had made it. Commander Vextel entered the chamber with several officers trailing behind him. His yellow eyes swept over the damaged but functional drive system. The other Kethar looked disturbed by what they saw. Report, the commander ordered. The modifications held together for the jump, Marcus said. But I wouldn't try it again without proper repairs. We pushed everything way beyond safe limits. One of the junior officers stepped forward. Commander, this human has created a safety hazard. These modifications could have destroyed the ship, but they did not. Vexthal replied calmly. Instead, they saved us from certain destruction by enemy forces. Perhaps there is something to be learned here. Marcus was surprised by the commander's response. Most Kethar officers would have blamed humans for any problems and ignored any successes. Sir, Marcus said carefully, your people build amazing technology, but you build it to work perfectly under perfect conditions. Humans build things to work badly under terrible conditions. The commander tilted his massive head. Explain. Marcus pointed to one of his improvised connections. You have a backup system for your backup system. But when all the backups fail, you have no options. We just made a new option with spare parts and hope. Hope is not an engineering principle, the junior officer said with disgust. No, Marcus agreed, but it's a survival principle. Commander Vexthal studied the human repair work for several more minutes. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Chen, You and your team will be reassigned to technical support duties. You will assist with complex repair situations that standard procedures cannot address. The junior officers looked shocked. Supervisor Graltok's scales turned pale yellow with fear. "Commander," Graltok said, "surely you do not mean to give humans actual technical authority. They are laborers. They lack proper training." "They lack our training," Vexthal corrected. "But they clearly possess different training. Today that difference saved our lives." Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself in a strange new position. He was no longer just a maintenance worker. He was being called to solve problems throughout the ship. When a food processor broke down and couldn't be fixed with standard parts, Marcus's team rigged a solution using components from 3 different systems. When the environmental controls failed in a storage bay, they created a temporary atmosphere processor from emergency equipment. Each success brought more attention. Other Kethar officers began requesting the human solutions for their own problems. Marcus trained more humans in improvised repair techniques. Soon there were small teams of human problem solvers working throughout the fleet, but not everyone was happy with these changes. Marcus was working on a communication array when he overheard 2 Kethar officers talking in the corridor. "This reliance on human techniques is dangerous," one was saying. "We are abandoning proven methods for primitive improvisation." "Perhaps," the other replied, "but their methods work. The humans have solved problems that stumped our best engineers, for now. But what happens when their crude solutions fail catastrophically? Who will be blamed when a human modification destroys a ship?" Marcus pretended to focus on his work, but he was listening carefully. He was starting to understand that his successes were creating problems he hadn't expected. That evening, Marcus was summoned to Commander Vexthal's quarters. He had never been in an officer's personal space before. The room was sparse and military, but there were strange artifacts on the walls that Marcus didn't recognize. "Sit," the commander said, gesturing to a chair that had been modified for human size. Marcus sat carefully. Being alone with a Kethar commander still made him nervous. "You are creating controversy," Vexthal said without introduction. "Sir, some of my officers believe I am making a mistake by giving humans technical responsibilities. They think your successes are just luck, and that eventually your methods will cause disasters." Marcus nodded. "They might be right, sir. Human engineering isn't perfect. We just try things that others won't try. That is precisely why you are valuable," the commander said. "My people are excellent engineers, but we think in straight lines. We follow procedures. We do not experiment." The commander activated a display showing tactical information. "We are facing an enemy that does not follow our rules. The Void Seekers adapt their tactics constantly. Our standard responses are becoming predictable." Marcus studied the tactical data. He didn't understand all of it, but he could see patterns. "Sir, it looks like they're learning from each battle. They see what you do, then they counter it next time." "Exactly. Our military doctrine is based on proven strategies that have worked for centuries. But proven strategies become expected strategies." Marcus was beginning to understand. "You want humans to help because we don't know the proven strategies. We'll try things that don't make sense." "You will try things that are unexpected," Vexthal corrected. "In warfare, unexpected can be more valuable than perfect." The commander leaned back in his chair. "I am promoting you to technical specialist 3rd grade. You will have authority to modify ship systems as needed during crisis situations." Marcus felt dizzy. A human with actual authority on a Kethar ship? It was unheard of. "Sir, your officers won't like this." "No, they will not. Some will actively oppose you. Others will try to sabotage your work. You must be careful, Chen. Success has made you visible, and visibility can be dangerous." As Marcus returned to his quarters, he thought about the commander's words. 3 years ago, he had been designing shields to protect Earth from the Kethar. Now he was working with them, helping them fight a different enemy. The other humans in his section gathered around him when he entered. "How did it go?" Sarah asked. "I got promoted," Marcus said, still not quite believing it. "Promoted?" Tom looked confused. "Humans don't get promoted. Apparently some do now." Marcus explained what Commander Vexthal had told him. The other humans listened with growing amazement and worry. "This is good, right?" Sarah said. "Better treatment, more authority." "Maybe," Marcus replied. "Or maybe it just makes us bigger targets." That night, Marcus lay in his bunk thinking about everything that had changed. One repair job had somehow turned into something much larger. He was no longer just fixing broken machines. He was becoming part of something that could change how two species work together. But change was always dangerous. There were Kethar who saw humans as a threat to their way of life. There were humans who would never forgive their captors. And somewhere in space, the Void Seekers were still adapting, still learning, still coming. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new problems to solve, new challenges to face. He just hoped that human ingenuity would be enough to handle whatever came next. The ship hummed around him, carrying them all toward an uncertain future. Word spread through the Kethar fleet faster than Marcus had expected. Within 2 weeks, he was receiving requests from other ships. Commanders who had never spoken to a human before were asking for technical consultations. The human solutions were becoming famous throughout the fleet. Marcus stood in the conference room of the battleship Iron Resolve, facing Commander Zekral and her senior staff. The Kethar officers towered over him, their scales various shades of green and brown. Their eyes studied him with mixtures of curiosity and suspicion. Technical Specialist Chen, Commander Zekral began. Our weapon systems are operating at 60% efficiency. Our engineers cannot identify the cause of the power fluctuations. Marcus examined the diagnostic displays. The weapons drew enormous amounts of energy, but something was causing irregular power drops throughout the firing sequence. How long has this been happening? He asked. 3 weeks. It began after our encounter with Void Seeker scouts. Marcus studied the power flow patterns. They looked familiar, but not in a good way. Commander, I think your ship has been infected with some kind of adaptive virus, something that learns your power systems and creates interference. The Kethar officers exchanged glances. Impossible, the chief engineer said. Our computer systems are completely isolated from external access. What about during battle? Do you connect to targeting systems, communication networks, anything that might receive external data? Well, yes, but those connections are secured with multiple encryption layers. Marcus sighed. Sir, humans have a saying. If something is connected to a network, it's not secure. If these Void Seekers are as adaptive as everyone says, they've probably figured out how to slip malicious code through your encrypted channels. The chief engineer's scales darkened with annoyance. Human, you are suggesting that an enemy has penetrated Kethar military encryption. This is both impossible and insulting. Maybe, Marcus said, but your weapons still don't work right. Commander Zekral raised a clawed hand for silence. What do you propose? We need to isolate the infected systems and purge them completely. Then we rebuild the weapon control network with different protocols. Make it work differently than the enemy expects. That would take weeks, the chief engineer protested, and it would violate standardized fleet procedures. Which is exactly why it might work, Marcus replied. If they've learned to hack your standard systems, we need non-standard systems. Commander Zekral considered this. Proceed with your modifications, technical specialist, but you will work under close supervision. Over the next few days, Marcus and a team of human technicians completely rewired the weapon control systems. Instead of using the standard network protocols, they created a hybrid system that combined Kethar technology with human-style redundancy and error correction. The Kethar engineers watched with growing alarm as the humans ignored established procedures. They connected systems that were meant to be separate. They added backup routes that bypassed security checkpoints. They created manual overrides for automated systems. This is chaos, the chief engineer complained to Commander Zekral. They are destroying our carefully optimized systems. They are creating something new, the commander replied. Perhaps that is what we need. When the modifications were complete, the weapon systems tested at 95% efficiency. The power fluctuations were gone, but the success created new problems. Marcus was returning to his quarters when 3 Kethar officers surrounded him in a corridor. They wore the insignia of the traditional faction, conservatives who opposed any changes to established military doctrine. Human, the lead officer said, his voice low and threatening. Your interference with proper procedures ends now. I'm just following orders, Marcus said carefully. You are corrupting our technology with primitive human concepts. You are convincing our commanders to abandon proven methods for experimental nonsense. The officers moved closer. Marcus realized that the corridor was empty except for them. No witnesses. Your species was conquered because your technology was inferior, another officer said. Yet somehow you believe you can improve our systems? I don't believe anything, Marcus replied. I just solve problems. You create problems, the lead officer corrected. And problems must be eliminated. Before they could act, Commander Vexthul appeared at the end of the corridor. His massive form filled the passageway and his yellow eyes glowed with dangerous intensity. Officers, he said calmly. Is there a problem here? The three traditionalists immediately stepped back and came to attention. No, sir, we were just discussing technical procedures with the human. I see. And this discussion required you to corner him in an empty corridor? We were concerned about safety protocols, sir. Commander Vexthul moved closer. Your concern is noted. However, Technical Specialist Chen is under my direct authority. Any issues with his work should be reported through proper channels. The officers saluted and left quickly. Marcus realized he had been holding his breath. Thank you, sir, he said. Do not thank me yet. Vexthul replied. This will not be the last such encounter. Your successes are threatening the established order. That night, Marcus met with Sarah and Tom in a maintenance bay, where they could speak privately. It's getting dangerous, Sarah said. The humans are starting to talk. Some think we're collaborating with the enemy. Some think we're becoming pets of the commanders, Tom added. Either way, we're losing friends, Marcus understood. For 3 years, humans had survived by staying invisible, by being useful but not important. Now they were becoming visible, and that made them targets from both sides. What choice do we have? Marcus asked. We can go back to cleaning pipes and fixing air filters, but these void seekers are real and they're dangerous. If the Kethar lose, what happens to us? Maybe we die, Sarah said. But at least we die as humans, not as alien collaborators. Or maybe we live, Marcus countered, and help build something better than what existed before. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency announcement. All senior personnel were to report to the command center immediately. Marcus arrived to find the center in chaos. Multiple displays showed tactical information, and all of it was bad news. Commander Vexthul stood at the central display, studying fleet positions. Technical Specialist Chen, we have a problem. A large void seeker force has been detected 3 systems away. They are moving toward our position. Marcus studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet was massive, easily twice the size of the Kethar forces in the sector. Sir, what's our strategy? That is the problem, Vexthul replied. Our standard battle doctrines assume relatively equal forces. Against such numbers, conventional tactics will fail. The fleet commander, Admiral Korthvan, turned toward them. Commander Vexthul, you have claimed that human thinking provides tactical advantages. Prove it. Marcus felt every eye in the command center focusing on him. Kethar officers, human technicians, everyone waiting to see what the human would say. Sir, I'm not a military strategist. I just fix broken machines. Then fix this, Admiral Korthvan said coldly. Because if you cannot, we will all die with honor following proper procedures. Marcus looked at the tactical display again. The Void Seeker fleet was huge, well-organized and moving with purpose. The Kethar fleet was smaller but more heavily armed. Traditional military thinking would focus on maximizing firepower and minimizing losses, but humans had never been traditional. Sir, Marcus said slowly, what if we don't fight them at all? The command center fell silent. Admiral Korthvan's scale shifted to a deep red color that Marcus had learned meant extreme displeasure. Did you just suggest that the Kethar fleet should run from battle? The Admiral asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Not run, Marcus said quickly. Refuse to fight on their terms. He moved to the tactical display and began highlighting different elements. Look at their formation. They're expecting a standard engagement. Big ships trading fire at long range until one side retreats or dies. Because that is how fleet battles are fought, Admiral Korthvan said. That's how they've always been fought, Marcus corrected. But what if we change the rules? Commander Vexthul stepped closer to the display. Explain your thinking. Marcus took a deep breath. The Void Seekers have been studying Kethar tactics for years. They know how you fight. They've prepared counters for every standard strategy, but they've never fought humans. Humans do not have a space fleet, an officer pointed out. No, but we have human ways of thinking about problems. We don't always choose the obvious solution. Marcus began manipulating the display, showing the positions of both fleets. What if instead of meeting them in open battle, we split our forces? Hit them from multiple directions? Force them to fight several smaller battles instead of one big one? Dividing our forces against superior numbers is suicide, the fleet tactical officer said. Maybe, Marcus agreed. Or maybe it's the only way to win. Admiral Korthvan studied the proposed battle plan. This violates fundamental principles of fleet combat. Divided forces cannot support each other. Individual ship groups will be destroyed in detail. Unless they can't catch us, Marcus said. Human ships were smaller and faster than yours. We couldn't win big battles, so we avoided them. We hit and ran. We made the enemy chase us into traps. Commander Vexthul was nodding slowly. Guerrilla tactics adapted for space combat. Sir, our ships are bigger and more powerful than theirs, Marcus continued. But they have more ships. In a straight fight, numbers win. But if we can force them to split up to chase us, we can fight small groups with our superior firepower. And if they refuse to pursue, Admiral Korthvan asked, then they have to defend everything at once, which means they can't concentrate their forces either. The Admiral considered this for long minutes. The other officers waited in tense silence. Marcus realized that he was proposing something that went against centuries of Kethar military tradition. The risk is enormous, Admiral Korthvan said finally. If your unconventional tactics fail, the entire fleet could be destroyed piecemeal. If conventional tactics fail, the entire fleet will definitely be destroyed, Marcus replied. Admiral Korthvan's scales shifted to deep purple, which Marcus had learned indicated serious thought. Commander Vexthul, you will take a fast attack group and test these human tactics. If they prove effective, we will expand the strategy. Sir, Marcus said, I request permission to accompany Commander Vexthul's group. Absolutely not, several officers said at once. You are not military personnel, Admiral Korthvan said. You have no training for combat operations. Sir, I may not be military, but this is my strategy. If it goes wrong, I need to be there to adapt it. Human tactics require human thinking. Commander Vexthul looked at Marcus for a long moment. Admiral, the human makes a valid point. These tactics are unfamiliar to us. Having their creator present could be valuable. After more discussion, Marcus found himself assigned as a tactical consultant to Commander Vexthul's strike force. It consisted of 3 fast cruisers and a dozen escort ships. Their mission was to probe the enemy fleet and test the effectiveness of human-style hit-and-run tactics. As they approached the edge of Void Seeker space, Marcus stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge. He had never been on a ship's bridge during combat operations. The Kethar officers moved with practiced efficiency, but Marcus could sense their nervousness about the unconventional tactics they were about to employ. Contact, the sensor officer reported. Void Seeker Patrol Group, 4 ships. They are moving to intercept. Standard procedure would be to form battle line and engage, Commander Vexthul said. What does human thinking suggest? Marcus studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were larger than the Kethar escorts but smaller than the cruisers. They were moving in a tight formation. Don't give them what they expect, Marcus said. Split our forces. Send the escorts around to their flank while the cruisers attack head-on. When they turn to face the cruisers, the escorts hit them from behind. And if they ignore the escorts and focus on the cruisers, then the escorts destroy them from behind while they're distracted. Commander Vexthul hesitated for a moment, then began issuing orders. The Kethar formation split apart. The escort ships curved away in a wide arc while the cruisers charged directly at the enemy. The Void Seeker ships responded exactly as their training dictated. They formed a defensive line and prepared to exchange fire with the approaching cruisers. They completely ignored the smaller escort ships circling around their flank. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Commander Vexthul ordered. The cruisers opened fire at maximum range, their heavy weapons lighting up space with brilliant energy beams. The Void Seeker ships returned fire, their weapons equally impressive. For a few moments, it looked like a standard fleet engagement. Then the escort ship struck from behind. The Void Seeker formation collapsed in minutes, caught between 2 groups of attackers unable to defend against both simultaneously. They were overwhelmed quickly. 3 enemy ships were destroyed and 1 retreated toward the main fleet. First engagement successful, Commander Vexthul reported to Admiral Korthvan. Enemy casualties, 3 ships destroyed. Our casualties, minor damage to 2 escorts. Acknowledged. Continue probing attacks. Over the next 6 hours, they repeated the tactic against multiple enemy patrol groups. Each time, the Void Seekers responded according to standard doctrine. Each time, the human tactics proved effective. But Marcus could see that the enemy was learning. "Commander," he said, "they're starting to adapt. Look at the last engagement. They kept one ship back to watch for flanking attacks." "Yes, I noticed. Your tactics are becoming less effective." "That's the point," Marcus said. "They're spending resources trying to counter our new approach. They're dividing their attention between fighting us and figuring out what we're doing. And when they do figure it out, then we change tactics again. The key isn't to have one perfect strategy. It's to keep them guessing." Commander Vexthol's expression was unreadable. "Human warfare is very different from ours. Sir, Kethar warfare is about strength and honor. Human warfare is about winning. And if winning requires abandoning strength and honor," Marcus thought about this carefully. "Sir, is there honor in losing? Is there strength in death?" Before Commander Vexthol could answer, the sensor officer called out urgently, "Contact. Large enemy formation approaching. Estimate 40 ships, including capital vessels." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The main Void Seeker fleet had found them. "All ships withdraw immediately," Commander Vexthol ordered. But as they turned to flee, more contacts appeared on the sensors. Enemy ships were emerging from quantum fold space all around them. They had been surrounded. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice tight with fear. "Enemy forces detected on all sides. We are cut off from the main fleet." Commander Vexthol studied the tactical display. They were outnumbered 8-1, surrounded and too far from help. By any conventional analysis, they were doomed. "Technical Specialist Chen," the commander said calmly. "This would be an excellent time for more human thinking." Marcus stared at the display showing enemy ships closing in from every direction. In a few minutes, they would be in weapons range. After that, the battle would be over very quickly. "Sir," Marcus said slowly, "sometimes the only way to win is to make sure nobody wins." Commander Vexthol turned his massive head toward Marcus. "Explain." Marcus studied the tactical display showing 40 enemy ships closing in on their small force. The Void Seekers had them completely surrounded. In 10 minutes, maybe less, the battle would begin and end quickly. "Sir, they've trapped us because they want to study our new tactics. They need to capture or observe our ships to understand what we're doing differently." "That seems likely. So what if we don't give them that chance? What if we deny them the information they want?" Marcus began highlighting sections of the display. "All our ships are equipped with quantum fold drives, right? What happens if we overload them?" The bridge crew exchanged glances. "Quantum fold drive overload creates a massive energy release," the engineering officer said. "It would destroy everything within several thousand kilometers, including enemy ships studying the wreckage," Marcus added. Commander Vexthol was quiet for a long moment. "You are suggesting that we destroy ourselves to prevent the enemy from learning our tactics. I'm suggesting we threaten to destroy ourselves. Force them to choose between learning our secrets and losing their entire fleet. That is," the commander paused, "a very human approach to the problem." Marcus activated the communication system. "This is Technical Specialist Chen of the Kethar Defense Force addressing Void Seeker Fleet Command." Static filled the channel for several seconds. Then a cold, mechanical voice responded. "This is Collective Node Prime. You will surrender your vessels for analysis. Resistance will result in termination." "I have a counter-proposal," Marcus said. "You will allow us to withdraw, or we will overload our quantum drives and take your entire fleet with us." "Your threat lacks credibility. Self-destruction serves no tactical purpose. It serves the purpose of denying you the intelligence you need," Marcus replied. "You've surrounded us because you want to study our new tactics. If we're all dead, you learn nothing." There was a longer pause. "You would sacrifice your lives for no strategic gain. We would sacrifice our lives to maintain our strategic advantage. That's what humans call acceptable losses." Commander Vexthol had been listening to this exchange with growing amazement. Now he activated his own communication channel. "Void Seeker Collective, this is Commander Vexthol. The human speaks for my fleet. We are prepared to execute his threat. The Kethar do not employ suicide tactics. Today we employ human tactics. Stand down your forces or share our destruction." For 5 tense minutes, nothing happened. The enemy ships continued to close but did not open fire. Marcus could see Void Seeker vessels maneuvering into better positions, but they seemed hesitant to complete their attack. "They're trying to decide if we're bluffing," Marcus said quietly. "Are we bluffing?" Commander Vexthol asked. "I don't know." "Are we?" The commander considered this. No. If they refuse our terms, we will indeed overload the drives. The intelligence value of our new tactics is worth preserving. Marcus felt a chill. He had been hoping they were bluffing. The communication channel crackled to life again. Kethar vessels, you will be permitted to withdraw. This engagement is concluded. The enemy ships began moving away, opening a corridor toward friendly space. Marcus realized he had been holding his breath. All ships withdraw at maximum speed, Commander Vexthul ordered. As they fled toward the main fleet, Marcus found himself shaking. They had faced almost certain death and somehow talked their way out of it. That was well done, Commander Vexthul said, though I hope we do not need to employ such tactics regularly. Sir, that was just the beginning. They'll be ready for us next time. We need to stay ahead of their adaptation. When they rejoined the main fleet, Admiral Korthvan was waiting with the results of the larger engagement. While Commander Vexthul's force had been trapped, the main fleet had used similar hit-and-run tactics against other enemy groups. The results were impressive. Void Seeker losses, 17 ships destroyed, multiple others damaged, the Admiral reported. Our losses, 3 ships destroyed, 7 damaged. The new tactics are highly effective. For now, Marcus said. But they're learning fast. We need to keep evolving our strategies. Over the following weeks, the war changed dramatically. Human tactical advisors were assigned to every major fleet commander. The rigid hierarchy of Kethar military doctrine was replaced by flexible command structures that could adapt quickly to changing situations. But the changes went deeper than just military tactics. Marcus found himself in a meeting with Admiral Korthvan and the fleet's senior commanders. They were planning the next phase of operations against the Void Seekers. Technical Specialist Chen, the Admiral said, your tactics have proven effective, but implementing them requires changes to our command structure. Junior officers must be allowed to make independent decisions. Traditional chains of authority must be modified. Yes, sir. Human tactics work because individual units can respond to local situations without waiting for orders from Central Command. This represents a fundamental change in how Kethar forces operate. Some of our officers are resistant to these modifications. Marcus understood. He was asking an entire military culture to abandon principles they had followed for centuries. Sir, maybe the changes don't have to be permanent. Once the war is over, you can go back to traditional methods. Admiral Korthvan's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue color. Can we? Once officers have experienced the effectiveness of flexible command, will they accept rigid hierarchy again? Once soldiers have seen the value of independent thinking, will they return to blind obedience? Marcus realized that the Admiral was right. They weren't just changing military tactics. They were changing Kethar society. Sir, change is always scary, but sometimes it's necessary. Indeed. The question is whether the changes we are making will strengthen us or weaken us in the long term. The answer came sooner than expected. A month later, Marcus was working in his lab when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Emergency announcements called all personnel to battle stations. The Void Seekers had launched a massive counterattack, but something was different this time. Marcus reached the command center to find Admiral Korthvan studying incoming intelligence reports. The enemy fleet was enormous, but it wasn't using the adaptive tactics they had displayed before. They've reverted to older strategies, the Admiral said. Conventional formations, standard battle doctrine. It's as if they've forgotten everything they learned from studying our tactics. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. Sir, I don't think they've forgotten. I think they've been replaced. Explain. The Void Seekers we've been fighting were learning and adapting. But what if the collective decided that adaptation was the problem? What if they replaced those units with ones programmed to follow rigid doctrine? Admiral Korthvan's expression was grim. They chose predictability over flexibility, which means our adaptive tactics will be extremely effective against them. The battle that followed proved Marcus right. The Void Seeker fleet fought with mechanical precision but no creativity. When the Kethar forces employed unexpected tactics, the enemy couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter them. The victory was decisive, but it came with sobering implications. They chose conformity over effectiveness, Commander Vexthul observed afterward. They would rather lose than change. And we chose change over tradition, Admiral Korthvan added. The question is whether we made the right choice. Marcus looked around the command center at the Kethar and human officers working together. sharing ideas and strategies. It wasn't perfect, and there were still tensions between the species. But it was something new, something neither species could have achieved alone. Sir, I think we chose survival over pride. Everything else we can figure out as we go. Years later, Marcus stood in the council chambers of New Ketha, the first integrated city built by both species working together. He was older now, with responsibilities he never could have imagined as a maintenance worker on an alien ship. The war with the Void Seekers had ended not in conquest, but in transformation. The collective had fractured when their rigid thinking proved unable to counter the flexible strategies developed by humans and Kethar working together. Technical. Specialist Chen, the council speaker said, the proposal before us today concerns the establishment of integrated command structures for the new Galactic Defense Force. Your recommendations? Marcus smiled. The title had stuck, even though his responsibilities had grown far beyond technical support. He was now one of the architects of a new kind of society, one built on cooperation rather than domination. Honored Council, I recommend we continue doing what has worked so far. Stay flexible, keep learning, and never assume that the way things have always been done is the only way to do them. In the audience, he could see Commander Vexthul, now Admiral Vexthul, nodding in agreement. Sarah and Tom sat nearby, both wearing the insignia of senior advisors in the new government. The changes that began with one strange order had transformed not just military tactics, but entire civilizations. Humans were no longer slaves or servants, but partners in building something unprecedented. Outside the council chambers, human and Kethar children played together in the city parks. Their parents worked side by side in research facilities and construction sites,